Hello and welcome back. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to go over our lens corrections panel to fix our lens distortion and possibly chromatic aberrations if it's been added via the lens. So as you may or may not know, depending on the lens type and the camera used, it's going to add some type of lens distortion to your images, mostly in the corners, and it's going to not only distort it, but sometimes add a vignette around the corners and the edges. So for this particular lesson, we're going to use two images. This one here, which we've been using in previous lessons, which is our JPEG file. And then we also have a RAW file. So I'm going to show you how to fix the lens distortion for these two file formats. Let's go ahead and start with our JPEG image first. So the easiest option is to select Profile, which have options to fix the lens distortion for us, versus Manual, which you'll have to, manually fix it. So in order to have ACR do it for us automatically, all we have to do is turn on Enable Profile Corrections. Unfortunately, nothing happened, and here's why. When you shoot in JPEG, the camera, make, and model, and the model of the lens used are not recorded to the metadata. So ACR is looking for that information in the metadata, and it's not there, so it can't make those changes for you automatically. So what you need to do is you need to tell ACR what type of camera that you use. You then need to choose the type of lens that was used. Then, once you do that, ACR should be able to find the profile for that camera and lens combination. And based on that profile, this is basically a preset created by Adobe, and that preset or that profile will be applied to the image and will fix the lens distortion. So if we turn this on and off now, we can see along the edges and the corners, there's a small fix being applied when we enable the profile corrections. So it's kind of stretching out the edges of the image, and that fixes the distortion. Now, if we compare that to a RAW file and we enable profile corrections, it automatically finds the camera model and the lens model and adds the profile automatically. And that's because this information is automatically written into the metadata of the file when you shoot in RAW. So again, we'll go ahead and turn this on and off, and you can see along the corners and the edges are being stretched out, and that's fixing the lens distortion for this particular camera model and lens combination. Now for both JPEG and RAW files, you can still come down here and tweak the edits if you're not liking how the distortion was fixed, or maybe it didn't remove enough vignetting. You can manually adjust these sliders here to adjust the distortion from the lens. Or if you're not liking any of this at all, you can come in here to the Manual tab and adjust your settings accordingly for your distortion up here and vignetting down here. And we have a little bit more control over that with our midpoint slider down here. All right, so with the chromatic aberration, you can also automatically remove that if it is appearing in your image. But if you're using a quality lens, then you're probably not going to experience chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration occurs when the lens coating on the lens isn't sufficient or missing, which is usually what happens with a lower quality lens, and then that aberration appears on your image. Now, I don't have any images to share with you to show you what it looks like, but it kind of looks like a little mini rainbow in a certain part of the image, and that is known as chromatic aberration, and you can automatically remove it with this setting here, or if it's not working with that option, you can come in here and make your adjustments with these defringe sliders here, and we can see we have purple amount, purple hue, green amount, and green hue, which are the colors that are made up from that chromatic aberration. And by making these adjustments with the slider, it will remove that aberration. It just takes a little bit more time to balance out between the different colors that are created by the aberration. So hopefully, if you do have that chromatic aberration, the automatic option works for you. If not, you're going to spend a little bit of time in this area trying to remove that particular aberration. But if you're using quality type lens, then you don't have to worry about it because you're not going to experience those chromatic aberrations in your images. Now, as I mentioned previously, the lens correction and the tone curve are two adjustments that I make for every image because I want to remove this lens distortion for every single image. So even if you're not going to do a tone curve or other type of edit automatically to your images, you're going to want to create a preset to apply this enable profile corrections so you can batch process 50, 100, or 10,000 images, however many images you bring into ACR, so you can automatically fix this without having to worry about coming over here to the lens correction panel and making that adjustment, because maybe you'll forget sometimes. Sometimes it's just a pain to come over here every time and click on this, especially when you have hundreds or thousands of images that you're trying to edit. It's a lot easier to create a preset and then batch process those images with that particular preset. And I'm going to show you how to create that preset in an upcoming lesson. But that's it for lens corrections for now. So for this image, before we continue on, make sure you enable the profile corrections. Select the make, which is a Nikon, and the model is a 14-24 2.8 lens. And then we can go ahead and move on to the next lesson, which is all about the effects panel.